I've just returned from spending 10 days in Washington, D.C., talking to a wide variety of stakeholders from the government, from the administration, Congress, NGOs, and the intelligence security community and the scientific community about international adaptation. And I'll just give an impression of what I see the U.S. doing and on this issue of international adaptation. And it's a mixture of good news and not so good news. The good news is that adaptation is now certainly on the agenda, certainly within the administration and the NGOs, definitely the environmental NGOs, development NGOs, and the faith-based groups are very much interested in adaptation. The scientific community is also very much interested. The National Academy of Sciences is now carrying out for the first time an adaptation study for the US, which is also taking into account international adaptation as well. The intelligence community, interestingly, intelligence and security community are also quite interested in the issue of the potential conflicts and security implications of impacts of climate change and what needs to be done, particularly on international adaptation. The not so good news is in Congress, where they have a number of bills before Congress now on climate change, primarily focusing on cap and trade and on mitigation efforts and not so much on adaptation. The budget that has been put forward right now does have an allocation for the first time for the United States to put money into the international adaptation funds under the Framework Convention, particularly the Least Developed Countries Fund. But the allocation that they've made for $10 million is a good move, but unfortunately they have evidently put in language that says up to $10 million, and it is authorized rather than appropriated, which I understand means that the money may or may not be forthcoming, which is not so good news. The most vulnerable countries, like the least developed countries, small island states, and the countries in Africa, all are going to suffer the impacts of climate change, and this is something that people in the US realize. And the least developed countries have actually already prepared national adaptation plans of action, which have identified immediate and urgent adaptation projects. The 50 or so LDCs, in order to fulfill or implement all the adaptation projects that they have identified in their NAPAs, or National Adaptation Plans of Action, would require in the order of $2 billion over the next 3 to 5 years to implement them. Unfortunately, the fund that was created for them, namely the Least Developed Countries Fund, which was set up at the 7th Conference of Parties in Marrakesh in Morocco in 2001, about 8 years or so ago, doesn't have enough money in it. The pledges that it has received so far are less than 200 million, so it's out by an order of magnitude. And unfortunately, over the last 8 years, the Bush administration had refused to put in a single penny into that fund. The fact that the Obama administration in their budget have asked for 10 million is a good sign, but 10 million really does not reflect the level of support that the biggest economy and the biggest polluter in the world, the United States, really needs to provide for that fund. So the order